Warning. The following podcast contains politics, leftist politics, the whole truth, justice, American way thing. We live in a time where one has to post this. Progress is a dirty word, such as science and reason. My superheroes would weep. This podcast contains naughty language as well.
Think about Trump. I think about the Superman comics I read when I was a kid. You know, it was like Obama was president, and you know Bizzarro world?
Yeah, sure.
In the Superman comic book.
Yeah.
So Obama was president. Trump is like Bizzarro president. You know, so there's some of that.
Just to balance out the universe, we had to have that
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen King. Yes, great minds think alike. This is my comic from a couple years ago. We share the same passion for nerdy things and cool references like Bizzarro. Let's get started. Welcome everybody to another podcast episode of DC Domingo. This time it is actually premiering on a Domingo. We have a lot of cool fun stuff to talk about. This podcast is titled Super Fucked Up Shit or some kind of abbreviation thereof. Simply because I had a whole awesome episode, because this is the 38th episode, and, the first episode of Action Comics premiered in 1938, so I was going to do a whole Superman-related one, but somehow, the universe kept giving us a bunch of, really fucked up, people online, and, we wanted to comment on that. I have been seeing a lot of cool new fans, and I will definitely be giving out some shout-outs. I'm going to create a new Unite the 7, because a while ago, when I first started the channel, I did, that one, Unite the 7, and I named a bunch of cool upcoming DC people, like Film Junkie, DC Fan Gives Hope, and a few others like that. So now we have pretty much 2 times as much, if not that many. So I'm going to do another one of that. So anyways, this is the intro. And I think the first one that we're going to be talking about, it's super fun, because it's actually kind of surprising. It caught a lot of people by surprise. This is Entertainment Tonight. Because I was trying to look for a nice capture instead of clickbait websites that have talked shit about, people before. So Supergirl is getting her own movie from Warner Brothers. If you recall, the Supergirl TV show moved from NBC or CBS or one of those, primetime networks to the CW after the first season, and it was actually better than, when it moved. So a Supergirl movie fitting with, Man of Steel and the Trinity, Wonder Woman, and Batman would be pretty fucking awesome. No details yet on who's the team behind it, but if we learn anything from the way Warner Brothers does things compared to how Disney does it, it looks like Disney just has a plan, like a season on a TV show, and they just hire, mostly TV show network people, so they shoot fast, cheap, and good enough. Whereas Warner Brothers is more like, it's kind of like a co-publisher. They're looking for, for instance, the comic book business, you would need an artist and writer team. On film, they're looking for director, production company. If a director and production company goes to Warner Brothers and says, hey, we want to make this one, they'll do it. That's how we got Martin Scorsese, making a movie about the Joker, that's separate from Jared Leto's Joker. I think this announcement would not have been made if there wasn't a director and production company already attached to it. And, we're going to look pretty soon for, script writers being mentioned, potential directors, but most likely the studio already knows who it is. So, pretty cool news. And this comes after, news that Margot Robbie, with her production company, decided to make the Harley Quinn spin-off movie, a whole group of female superheroes. It's pretty damn awesome. Good news. So, if you have seen this awesome picture of the crew from Wonder Woman set in the 1984, everybody was, kind of happy and had a nice laugh, except this person named I M Alden, and you can see that he got 144 likes and 40 replies on Twitter, saying that he's actually sick of Wonder Woman. So my awesome Latino actor Pedro Pascal, who played one awesome character in Game of Thrones, replied with this awesome tweet. The Breakfast Club takes place in Illinois, 1984. So I made everybody post. Then I used InstaFilter, posted, and deleted to save it to my phone, thinking no one would catch it. Not meant to make you, quote-unquote, sick, just supposed to be hanging in my house. And, Pedro Pascal got, almost 1.4 thousand tweets and likes and stuff. So, yeah, we have a dumbass hater, who was like, oh, I'm so sick of this. Because apparently he's saying that, the Spider-Man people were the first ones to do it and therefore brilliant, even though Pascal was actually, referring the actual movie. And I don't know, it's just very, very funny, but very, very, petty to have, somebody, trying to ruin somebody else's day by saying, my needs outweigh the happiness of everybody else, because everybody loved the Wonder Woman picture, except this one douche. And that's the coolest part, though, for all the negativity that we see on media about DC these and DC that, if you look at the ratio of haters versus the people who actually like DC, it's kind of a very disproportionate. So anyways, fun stuff. Continuing the theme with, all things super, GQ, the magazine that gave us back, liberal frontrunner and intellectual Keith Olbermann, after his, ban from talking about, anything political. GQ offered this, awesome review. It's a good time to revisit Watchmen, which surprisingly holds up. And GQ is kind of like a very liberal intellectual magazine as of lately. I remember a bunch of people were surprised when GQ Teen Magazine was actually doing better covering of grassroots activism 2 years ago. So it is a very intellectual magazine and of notoriety. So it is pretty interesting that, they would list Watchmen and kind of give it a nice little plug and review, because it still holds up. I have my whole room with the Watchmen posters. And one of the things that I find it enjoyable is that as a, person who knows how to write and draw comics, as a person who studied, a few classes in college and in high school about film and film analysis, Watchmen just hits the sweet spot between a good film and a good adaptation. So I think that, you can go ahead and check out my Watchmen review, which I will put in the description below. But it's funny because it's almost like nobody's really talking about any Marvel films. Actually, I showed my girlfriend Ang Lee's Hulk, which kind of stands out as a, they're trying to do something different and artsy. She never seen it before, and she kind of so enjoyed it. She appreciated it for what it was. She liked it. She's telling me. So, and I liked it too because I own it, and it was back in the day when Marvel's was allowing Universal Studios to do stuff with the Hulk, but not anymore. So yeah, go ahead. I will link the GQ article also below in the description. But yeah, it is kind of nice seeing more DC love than DC hate. So that's pretty cool. All right, so this dude named Jeremy Conrad, whose last name sounds like an insult. And he is from Texas, so forgive his fucking ignorance. So he was laughing at this Asian girl who kind of has been a really big voice in China. When Batman vs. Superman premiered in Mexico, there was a lot of us fans, a lot of Latino fans. When Justice League premiered in Brazil, it was the highest selling and highest viewed movie that Friday, I think. And also people in China really liked Batman vs. Superman and Justice League. So it makes sense that, within this fandom, there'd be like one or two people who, kind of become famous and, speak for everybody else. And one funny thing, if not just ironic, is that the interesting thing is that a lot of people seem to give shit to Snyder because he likes a lot of intellectual books. He cited Joseph Campbell as mythological influence, as far as using the 1980s John Byrne Man of Steel comic to adapt Man of Steel the movie is pretty cool. There is a little bit of like the whole individualistic libertarian view, and what I found out as an intellectual is that libertarianism outside of the US, it's almost more liberal, whereas here in the States, everybody's into their whole self-image, being more selfish, and here it's a little bit more towards the right. So, Zack Snyder being a liberal dude from Hollywood, he kind of views that as, your body, your right. Don't listen to what everybody says, just kind of like follow your heart, follow your passion, and, it's a good dichotomy because in the movie Man of Steel, everybody had roles, kind of like in capitalism or the feudal system, or if your last name was Baker, you'd be a fucking baker, shit like that. So for someone like Fiona, who's, the girl from China, being into the whole personal freedom in a country like China, it's kind of revolutionary. You can kind of see it. Here in the United States, it's a little bit more of like, if I make my drink more complex at Starbucks, I'm awesome, and that kind of shit. So anyways, this guy, Jeremy Conrad, was making fun of Fiona because apparently he doesn't know how this other social media website called Vero True Social works. He figured that, if Fiona and Zack Snyder don't follow each other, they're not friends. And that's not how Vero works. So what happened, coincidentally, is that this dumb white dude talked shit online, and a bunch of us minorities were like, actually, that's not how it works. And, we kind of had to like explain how this shit worked. And, it's almost like, your angry, dumbass uncle who doesn't know how, the television set works, and then everybody's like, hey, fuckface, this is how it works. And then, he gets angry at us kids, So, anyways, Fiona and Zack Snyder are friends on Vera True Social. And, Zack Snyder is not following her. In fact, he hardly follows anybody. He is friends with the co-creator of Vero True Social, and what they do with this other app, they cut the bullshit. They cut the algorithm to make it more of a unique, individualistic experience. You choose how the algorithm works instead of corporations deciding to, advertise to you, or the Trump supporters using hashtags to make shit look bigger than it is. And it also cuts down on bots. So anyways, the beautiful thing that came out of this is that there was another face introduced to the petition to have the Zack Snyder version of Justice League released. And there was this awesome campaign to just write letters so that, by the time the new CEO of DC Entertainment starts, their new quarter as head of that department, they receive, a very, very standard letter that everybody is just going to sign their name and, country of origin. It's really cool. It's really non-threatening. It's just like a fan saying, hey, we have money. If you have this product, we will buy it. And that's basically the awesome positive that came out of this. Question: how do you turn a bunch of us liberals into gun supporters? Answer: Disney fans petition for James Gunn to be rehired by Disney. And the answer is negative. So, if you guys don't know, this guy first got his first big shot in LA making porn. It's a humble beginning. Then he moved to Trauma Entertainment, made a bunch of C movies, which were, it's, again, humble beginnings, not to diss anybody. But something happened. There was a split. When Zack Snyder revived Romero's classic Dawn of the Dead, written by James Gunn and directed by none other than Zack Snyder, there was a divide. Because James Gunn was a socialite and loved to fuck with people, he was not blamed for the film. The film's flaws resided only on Zack Snyder, and the only flaw that film history and film historians look at it is that it reignited the zombie genre in modern times. A lot of people do cite, other zombie movies, kind of like 28 Days Later and stuff like that, but most people would agree that here in the States, that's the one that kind of resurfaced the zombie genre. So camps split into two: the ones who love James Gunn and the ones who always, hated Zack Snyder. That's where the divide happened. So even after James Gunn did the two horrible Scooby-Doo movies and won 2 Razzie Awards, people still supported him. There was a time when he got hired to make Guardians of the Galaxy, where his horrible, blog of what he would do as a dude with like all the all the female superheroes and bad girls, it went viral. Before, it was just like around the time that Twitter was first getting started, but it was just pretty horrible and just like a long blog of just horrible, non-funny shit. If you don't know what a joke is, A joke is a setup, a delivery, and a punchline. You know, guy walks into a bar, situation happens, haha, there's a punchline. What his style of humor is not style of humor, and it's not even a joke. He just writes, fuck this, do this, I'll do this. It's not a joke. There is like no structure to it. There's no narrative. And his defense was like, well, if you don't know me, you don't get it. But the problem is like, we can all understand humor, you know? The producers, for instance, makes fun of Hitler, you know? So anything can be joked about if you're a good comedian. He happens to be a really shitty comedian who used to do a lot of shock humor because that's how he stood out from all the other LA people. But his shock humor kind of, you know, how should I put it? It's even like cringy for like a teenage boy. You know, it has to do with a bunch of like pedophilia stuff and just really uncomfortable shit. And it's kind of like your drunk uncle who keeps making fun of one race or misogynistic jokes. It's like you kind of are what you make fun of. You know, I tend to combine a lot of intellectual political shit, even though this is like a comic book, DC Comics related, because that's how I am. You know, I'm political. So anyways, when the news broke off, all the fucking people, the usual suspects as it were, started to do something weird, which is like knowing that Disney was not going to hire James Gunn, all of a sudden they started to erase their Zack Snyder hatred because they thought that they were next. You know, and they've said some really inflammatory shit. For instance, this person that we covered before, we all take screenshots of their stuff and we report them to Twitter. And I think that's why they're scared, because, you know, you can't really defend hatred. Again, if it's humor, you need a setup, a delivery, and a punchline. That's what you knew. This is neither, you know? So we are not really doing any like harassment, but they are. They're choosing to, you know, talk shit about someone who actually stepped out of the limelight because, you know, his daughter committed suicide. You know, he's like, I don't think that is equatable to someone who had like more than 10,000 posts about misogyny, homophobia, and pedophilia jokes that were never funny. You know, and to quote Helen DeGeneres, you know, if it's meant to be a joke, why aren't we all laughing? That's a great quote from her. You know, so one of the things that was definitely surprising is that they moved on to talking shit again about Sucker Punch. And, you know, we have a lot of diversity, as we've shown in the DC family. This lady from Brazil, you know, she gets it. She's talking about all these stuff. And the usual suspects are not responding. The usual suspects, believe it or not, there is like a standard kid. And shout out to this awesome person of color who I think is Latina. I might not be wrong. Donia. You know, she posted this like I think Zack Snyder sucks, you know, kid. It's always the same thing, you know, exaggerated, you know, poses, you know, all this crap. And it is true. Most of the people that do hate Zack Snyder are white people. And it's weird because, like, Zack is pretty fucking, you know, progressive. You know, he wears an NPR shirt. You know, he fucking identifies himself as a Buddhist. You know, he's kind of left-leaning, but he does value, you know, the personal, individual. freedom, which is pretty fucking cool. The surprising thing is that as us DC fans have become very vocal, we've shown that we are made up of a lot of minorities. So it came to my surprise when, Gail Simone, who's a white lady, was called a racist white lady by Brandy Burgess, who's a person of color. And I'm like, holy shit, that's a kind of a surprise. But I do notice that a lot of these angry people who talk shit about us and Zack Snyder and stuff, they never engage us people with minorities. They've told us to shut the fuck up, to know our place. And, it seems like I've coined the phrase white-splaining, because if you're a dude and you want to be like, actually, Sucker Punch is about this, this, and that, they would always say, like, well, are you mansplaining? And I'm always like, oh, are you white-splaining shit to me now? It's like, if you're going to use your cards, you better receive them too. And that doesn't seem to happen very often. But anyways, I don't know. Gail Simone accused of racism. Shit, that's a new one. I actually unfollowed her on Twitter, and I followed Greenpeace because I was like, yeah, I'm just going to turn this shit into a positive, And yeah, I don't know. It almost seems like these people are stuck in a little bubble, and any minority who wants to burst that bubble gets ignored. And again, this person was talking to another dude from fucking Texas. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is a correlation in Texas? And I remember that the Alamo Draft House is in fucking Texas. Same fucking place that Ain't It Cool News was, made. And it's always the same fucking people who are the loudest. It's a fucking clique, And Ain't It Cool News, Harry Knowles was accused of sexual harassment. Devin Ferrasi from Alamo Draft House, same shit. So it's a culture of a group of people from that area who create a narrative. And that narrative comes to in the form of like who pays for them to go to see movies, which studio pays them the most for like premium passes for VIP, scoops that makes up their websites go up. Same shit. But anyways, that is done with that. Don't be mean to, Gail Simone. Just fucking unfollow her if you want to. Don't send any fucking bullshit. Just be the better person. Be the Superman. Oh, right. And speaking of minorities, I had a whole section on, because this was going to be like a Superman themed episode. And one of the coolest Superman, in my opinion, is the other Man of Steel, Cyborg. Now, if you don't know, Cyborg was created in the 80s. As part of the Teen Titans group. And a lot of dumb people online, rightly so, used to compare him to Iron Man. But what a lot of people don't know is that Iron Man was actually a copy of Metallo. The original DC Comics Metallo was just some rich asshole who put on a fancy metal suit to fuck up with Superman. That is the inspiration for Iron Man. Whether or not fucking Stan Lee wants to admit it or the courts want to admit it, it's there. We all know it. But, hey, money talks. So I had a bunch of stuff because a lot of Cyborg deleted scenes have been popping up on the web from the Zack Snyder Justice League cut. And usually it wouldn't be a big deal, but because it seems that the Snyder cut was finished and was done, and, producers who are no longer with the company saw the opportunity to remake the movie when Snyder exited due to a family tragedy. It's kind of fucked up. And, cutting minority stuff out of a major movie, it's kind of fucked up too. So that's partly why we want the Snyder cut because Cyborg was going to be the heart of the movie. And one of the reasons why we bring it up is that Cyborg has been cast in the Doom Patrol TV show that is coming from streaming to the DC universe. If you haven't seen the film The Purge, like the origin, this young star, Jovan Wade, he's been cast as Cyborg for Doom Patrol. And if you don't know what Doom Patrol is, it's basically the X-Men several months before the first X-Men debuted. Doom Patrol was over at DC, even with like a wheelchair mentor and everything. It's a whole issue that we got to talk about that stuff. But it was great news. We have a Cyborg on Doom Patrol, and another one in the movies. Fucking great, right? Well, the clickbait people said something like, "Oh, this means Cyborg's dead," or in the movies, blah blah blah. And Ray Fisher himself, he posted, "I don't usually engage in the rumor mill, but its recent turn may be worth a little grist. I am not, nor do I have any intention of leaving Cyborg. Furthermore, if/when the time comes for me to hang out my old too revealing mocap onesie, you'll hear it from me directly. #BorgLive." And yeah, that's the thing though, is that, these actors are busy. They're trying to live their lives. They're trying to get new roles. They're trying to just fucking work, right? And these fucking media pariahs leech onto anything to make that fucking clickbait revenue. And I feel as though I think studio heads really need to stop giving these fucking clickbait any fucking seconds. 1 second is too fucking many. They need major studios. If you sign a contract with them, you need to offer 24/7 media vigilance. There's too many fucking trolls, too many fucking clickbaits, too many assholes. So, yeah, Borg Alive, we have 2 now. Fucking great. Now, a quick, albeit brief, same thing, thing about Fox Studios. Fox Studios was always cool for all of us geeks. They're the ones who gave us, the Alien franchise. Alan Ladd Jr. was the one who gave us Star Wars. I think he even lost his job after Empire because the greedy studios wanted all the rights, and Alan Ladd allowed Lucas to keep his rights, so they fired him. Planet of the Apes was also started there. A bunch of cool franchises started over at Fox Independence Day. So yeah, us nerds, we've liked a lot of cool things from Fox Studios. It wasn't until Rupert Murdoch, purchased it that you got Fox News and shit like that. But the studio goes back, way back. They even had their own amphitheater, and if I'm not mistaken, Francis Ford Coppola purchased the Golden Doors from the all Fox cinema and had them placed here in San Francisco at American Zoetrope in his first offices. I learned all this not because I'm a film buff, but it's on the on several documentaries about the Bay Area, cinema history. So yeah, Fox Studio has a legacy beyond just Marvel movies. So when most of the chatter online by Marvel fans was like, "Yay, Disney finally buying Fox so that the Avengers and X-Men can fight," but who sold the rights to begin with? Marvel. You don't sell your children and then be like, "Yay, we get him back." It's like, fuck that, and that was kind of problematic. It's kind of an illness to put blame and focus on different things, you know. So while I was checking out the Hollywood Reporter for this cover that is making all the news lately of the movie Crazy Rich Asians, there was an article by Leonard Maltin about Hollywood, rest in peace, and or Fox News or Fox Fox Studio, 20th Century Fox, rest in peace. And someone like Leonard Maltin, it's not a fanboy. He's a serious studio critic, and knows a lot about studio history. I think he's even written like a Leonard Maltin's Guide to Cinema. That book was available pretty much every indie filmmaker that I know throughout the whole Bay Area. It's kind of like you must have that one. So, this eulogy comes really at a sad moment, because a lot of people are just so pro populism, so pro power, so pro Infinity Gauntlet. They don't care who dies, or which studio dies. They're just like winning. Disney just acquired Star Wars and Marvel, and now Fox, yay, winning. So that fucking mentality is a little bit too scary, and we're gonna talk about that. It's the main, topic of like super fucked up shit that's been going on lately. And within this whole fucked up shit, we have someone like Leonard Maltin who speaks the truth and, kind of knows that this is not good news at all. Giant media swallowing up other media, it's kind of cancerous, So yeah, go ahead and check that out. I will write the link to his, eulogy. Or if you happen to be nearby where newspapers are sold, actually buy the magazine, the Hollywood Reporter. Thanks. So, my amazing, fellow Mexican, Guillermo del Toro won the Oscar for Best Director and Best Picture for a fairy tale called The Shape of Water. That shouldn't have been a surprise. Del Toro is a great director. But a lot of people felt that, the Academy should have picked a non-fairy tale. Simply because, they forget that a great movie has no genre. And the most jealous person was fucking Disney, because the only movie that has been nominated as a fairy tale from Disney was the animated version of Beauty and the Beast, and they're currently remaking every animated fucking movie they've ever done with George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic money. So they got jealous, and because they own ABC, they kind of forced the Academy to put in a populist Oscar, which is equal to the participation trophy of sports. But it kind of backfired. All the fucking dumbass people, including, the Marvel fanboys, especially Rotten to the Core Tomato, there you go. They basically want to make Disney win a fucking Oscar, or Marvel for that matter. And that kind of sucks. You have even Variety, they posted that they're not happy with this. Even the first response was like a weird, fascist cartoon of Disney, like, hey, fuck this shit. We're not going to stand for it. And I don't know, it's not very popular. Kevin McCarthy, who has been loving movies since he was a little kid, wrote all this, you know. And I have to agree with him. You know, a populist Oscar defeats the purpose. You know, it would be like a student who didn't fucking learn anything, but he was liked by everybody, you know, getting a degree. I mean, that's fucked up. That's not academic at all. That is just disgusting, you know? It would be like a president who has no fucking knowledge of the law or public service just because he was populist enough becoming the president. We all know how shitty that's turning out to be. So, yeah, it's really disheartening. And, you know, as someone who, I've met Del Toro a few times, you know, we've spoken, you know, I have his, you know, email, he has mine. I even gave him a bunch of artwork for my graphic novel that, you know, I'm trying to finish. And he said he was going to write the intro. You know, it's kind of disheartening because I don't think Disney values filmmaking. Otherwise, they would make better movies, you know? I don't think anybody in our DC fan base was saying, hey, if you don't like Wonder Woman, you hate women. Yet, Rotten Tomatoes blocked any kind of critique from Black Panther, but not from Wonder Woman. So, there is definitely a bias going in there. There's definitely a populist agenda by Disney to acquire, you know, paid for Oscars for the most popular movie. And I don't think the Oscars are going to be that great anymore. I think that, you know, if I was a French or Italian filmmaker, I'd be laughing. And I would say, you know what? The Oscars no longer count for quality if that fucking award is going to be there. I'm hoping that a lot of people will not look kindly on this populist award, because it basically allows the Academy to be discriminatory, you know, towards movies they don't deem quality enough. If people want to say something like, you know, some of the CGI in Black Panther looked like a PlayStation 2 video game, they're going to be ostracized, you know. Even though there are other categories which Black Panther could get nominated for. Best costume, sure. Or, you know, Drake for soundtrack. There you go. But I think the populist vote basically gets rid of and bypasses all other quality control. It just says, like, hey, if a dumb public loves it and it's loud enough, let's give it to them. You know? And that sucks. That really does suck. Now, it might backfire brilliantly in a film like Borat. Might become like the best fucking populist one, or something insanely crazy like Jackass Returns. You know, will be hijacked and be ridiculed over and over. So it's a sad day. That's why I had a whole show planned about Superman, but you know, these fucking news have been horrible one after the other. So yeah. Rest in peace, Oscars. Alright, so everybody knows what this is. This is the Green Lantern Extended Cut Blu-ray DVD, accompanied by my receipt of the 3D version, opening day, for $10.50. Actually, that was quite an expensive movie ticket. There's also 2 collectible busts of Tom Marie and Sinestro. Now, why am I showing you this? Simple. Me, as a DC fan, and, you know, connoisseur of movies, can tell you that the Green Lantern movie, even the extended cut, it's not very good. You know? but I have it. I bought it. I supported it. There's a difference between consumerism, meaning quality, versus like knowing what you're buying. So to quote Kevin Smith, it's good to have a Green Lantern movie than no Green Lantern movie at all. Pretty cool analogy, I happen to agree. But there is a distinction. We know this movie is kind of crappy. The extended cut, is it better? Meh, not necessarily, but it's shitty. For instance, like, you remember Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. If someone removed like 20 minutes of the intro of that movie, where you kind of bond with the character of Peter Parker and his uncle and his aunt and Mary Jane, if somebody was like, hey, just fucking chop that shit off and, put little snippets here and there, flashbacks, and we want to see Spider-Man going. I think that's what happened to this movie. The heart of the movie got gutted. There's a bunch of scenes with Hal Jordan, with his, with his brothers, with his nephew. There's even something that makes sense later on. For instance, one of the first times we see Green Lantern, he makes a giant fucking, like a Hot Wheels loop, like a ramp, in real life, to divert a catastrophe. And there's a scene with Hal Jordan as an uncle talking to his nephew about his nephew's birthday party and stuff like that. And this is where Hal Jordan uses the little Hot Wheels loop, and he kind of gets a little jolt or something, and that scene was cut out. And with the special effects, with all the action sequence, with the Hot Wheels ramp, that was not cut. So they cut out things that would have made sense, and unfortunately, the movie suffered because of that. I'm showing you this because Brand-ism kills. Currently, you are either pro something or against something. And that was not the case, Back in the day, I have this picture of my me, myself, and I, and a bunch of people waiting for, I think, The Avengers, May 3rd, 2012. This is us, nerdy people, being excited. Back in 2012 when they were still doing midnight releases. I think they let us in at 9, or midnight, I don't know. They let us in probably later on. I'm going to say 10ish. Here's the next picture, I think. Yeah, that's inside. Yeah, it was actually a midnight release back in the day when midnight releases were a thing. Thor vs. Iron Man here at the Downtown Roxy. And yeah, I wanted to show you that for my own personal memory lane on Facebook, because Brand-ism wasn't an issue until Disney started to want to gobble up everything. And I am someone who, when Warner Brothers makes a subpar product, I don't really plug it in. I don't really do a commentary on the Green Lantern movie. I'm like, don't really need one. But the problem is that over the last several years, there's been this weird fucking indoctrination, by everything Disney. From the removal of a classic, Tower of Terror, they turned it into Guardians of the Galaxy Tower for some stupid fucking reason. They removed the ESPN area and restaurant, where it was the only place you can get a decent steak and a decent beer and a decent brew. If you're a parent taking your kids to Disneyland, you're like, fuck, I want to get a nice steak and beer. It's going to be a little bit harder. So they began doing all this stupid shit. I think they were trying to even remove Darth Vader. to replace it with Kylo Ren. You know, all the old stormtroopers were gone and replaced with like the new fucking First Order shit. So they've been doing a lot of stuff like this where like they're trying to dominate the market by sheer force and willpower instead of by being good. So one of the things to kind of spark this debate was that before the Black Panther movie came on, there was a lot of promotional, done by Disney and woke folks from New York, especially like Harlem, that were just like, if you don't see Black Panther, you're a racist. When it came time to Kevin Tetsuhara, who's actually, Japanese American, who is the CEO of Warner Brothers. He's the CEO of a very large corporation. He greenlit this movie called Crazy Rich Asians, and we're not seeing the same kind of support from the woke movement. And that's kind of fucked up, because I thought that we minorities should be all sticking together, especially when Wakanda isn't real. And Disney didn't even bother filming in Africa to save money. This movie, it actually forwent a shitload of money from Netflix to be distributed in cinemas so that, people would actually see a very, very diverse cast. Ava DuVernay, she supports this movie, and some people might say like, well, that's because, her movie Wrinkle in Time failed over at Disney, and she's now working for Warner Brothers for the New Gods movie. But that's not it. I think she honestly supports it. And, there are these fucked up people, like the person who wrote from the Washington Post that, it fails to showcase the diversity of all Asia. And somebody responded with like, I'm really concerned Ant-Man and the Wasp failed to capture the diversity of the white experience. It's a pun because Wasp is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So no one was like, hey, Black Panther fails to diversify the African experience, which is true. Everybody sounded like they were from South Africa, even though like Johannesburg has a different accent than from like the French Congo or stuff like that, or even Egypt. There's, if you have an English, like an accent in English, it's going to be different if you were from Egypt or Algiers, because they speak French most of the time. Even between like Zimbabwe and Congo, there's still like a little bit of difference, and a lot of people don't capture it. I watch a lot of documentaries and news from international sources, so I kind of see it. And even Idris Elba was talking about it when he filmed the movie Mandela. So yeah, I'm seeing kind of a blind loyalty and Brand-ism, and it's fucked up. I think Brand-ism is not about enjoying your brand anymore. It's more of like talking shit about everybody else. For instance, like this picture exemplified, the Trump brand. It's not really about making USA great again. It's more about pissing off the European Union. So, it's it's really fucked up and disheartening. But we all knew that this kind of divisiveness was going to trickle down. We just didn't know how far it was going to be, and you can see it. It's gross. So, one of the things that I wanted to say is that Black Panther was greenlit after Warner Brothers announced the Cyborg movie. Prior to that, there was no fucking plans. Kevin Tetsuhara, an Asian American distributor of films in the home DVD department, I guess, got promoted to CEO because he's fucking good. Not to compete with another studio. Crazy Rich Asians got picked up because the book was good, and the team behind it believed enough to forego Netflix. Jim Lee, who's now the head of the DC movie connection over at Warner Brothers, he got there by talent. He was one of the founders of Image who said, fuck Marvel, we're founding Image. And he eventually ended up with DC. Again, he got promoted because he's that fucking good. So we have Tetsuhara, Jim Lee, and Crazy Rich Asians. They're all diverse. And they all got there, not because they're Asian, but because they're married. They got talent. Not because of a fucking marketing strategy. So, go see Crazy Rich Asians. And, don't fall for Brand-ism. If you're a fan of Warner Brothers and you didn't like Meg, the giant shark movie, you'd be like, oh, fuck, I want Deep Blue Sea again. Yeah, let them know, man. It's all good. It's all good to critique your own, but just know what you're getting. And don't be blind. If you like the Green Lantern movie, do like I do and buy it. And just be like, yeah, it's kind of crappy, but hey, fuck it. I like Green Lantern. Alright, so I'm going to leave you on an upbeat note. This is a very, very funny meme going around. Journalist, illegal immigrant, enemy of the American people. Clark Kent, Superman. I'm going to do a updated version of this with Henry Cavill. I'll probably have it for you guys next time. And another classic comic, I'm going to plug in my website. Going to give the link below. I'm usually just on Facebook as Obama and Superman, which I think is a very good analogy for Batman vs. Superman. It wasn't so much that Superman was depressed and down or blah, blah, blah. It's more like the fucking world was against Superman. And, half the country hated Obama, too. For no fucking reason. So, yeah, I made this comic. And, oddly enough, it seems that people who want change, people who want the world to be a better place, we tend to gravitate towards DC Comics. It's more mythological, And I'm going to leave you with this. There is a wonderful group of women-driven change makers in politics, calling themselves Justice Democrats. Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez, or although her name is Alexandria, but I like to call her Alejandra because she's Latina. She was recently elected, running as a social Democrat, I think. But now there are 18 of the Justice Democrats who are advancing to the general election. So it's a very progressive movement. It's not crazy socialism. It's more like FDR and the big deal, to kind of like go back to common sense democracy, where we're not like eating the rich or shit like that. It's more like Workers don't have to suffer. That's it. Or people in the U.S. don't have to go hungry, things like that. Where there's a minimum, requirement. It's like saying everybody can have free basic Wi-Fi, but you can still pay for premium. That's kind of like what everybody says. So it's a nice analogy, and I'll leave it with that. They have a store. They even have really cool, like, Justice League kind of a logo. I'm probably going to be getting a shirt, and I might take a picture with it. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of this stuff has real world consequences, and if you believe in superheroes, fucking follow your dreams, man, and be Superman. Get out there and vote, make the world a better place, one vote at a time. This is DC Domingo, DLC at DC. See you guys until the next episode.